Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, March 21st, 2024. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, homebrewer Scott Housel shares his low ABV Mash Your Luck beer with me and Adam Ross of Twin Span Brewing. We also get into a detailed discussion about some food safety issues around low and non-alcoholic beers, and we come up with a Mash Your Luck challenge for Steve Wilkes. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing, and many thanks to everybody who's helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. And many thanks to the new Patreon subscribers who are signing up to help us carry on in challenging times for some of our sponsors. Financial supporters this week will see an early release of the Grapefruit Soda Chandler video episode, or the Fresca Chandler episode that Steve Wilkes and I recorded. As I've already said on this show, Steve and I actually like Fresca, so we thought combining it with a tasty pale ale was it was a tasty success. Unlike Matt Giovanisi and Josh Secor, who weren't so fond of it last week. Different tastes. I don't know. Maybe it's an age gap. Financial supporters will also get the recipe to the pale ale that went with that, and a behind-the-scenes video of how quickly that extract beer came together. The brew day, from turning on the heat to shutting off the chiller, I figure was about 90 minutes. I have to give a shout-out to listener Joe, who wrote in because he was starting to listen to podcasts on YouTube Music and was wondering why this particular show that you're listening to now wasn't on YouTube Music. Well, because of Joe's note, I think I figured out how to get Basic Brewing Radio on YouTube Music. It's on YouTube now. I guess time will tell if it will show up on the feed each week on YouTube Music if you subscribe there. I started the process of putting the podcast on YouTube last week at about this time, and as of this morning, it's still ingesting episodes from the archives. Right now, it's still got about 150 episodes to go. So if you're a user of YouTube Music, let me know how it's working out for you. This past weekend, I brewed my version of a hoppy raw ale inspired by my conversation with Mika Leitinen, author of Viking Age Brew. I don't want to spoil too many details because Chris Colby and I formulated that recipe in an upcoming audio episode. But as I've told you, I'm actually a few weeks ahead in recording interviews, so I'm knocking wood that trend continues. I like, having some buffer between me and panic. If I wake up on Monday morning and I don't have an interview already recorded, I tend to get a little panicky. Anyway, I will tell you that this hoppy raw ale is a smash beer with a darker base malt and an American hop. It's in the fermenter now, and I'm planning to dry hop this afternoon and keg in a couple of days, 6 days after I pitch that yeast. And the yeast that I pitched was A37 Pog from our friends and sponsors at Imperial Yeast. Pog is Ebergarten Kveik, known for producing an extreme amount of tropical fruit aromas, including pineapple and guava at the upper end of its temperature range, and more delicate citrus, peach, and kiwi at the lower end. I haven't tasted the beer yet, but I chilled the wort to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, or 32 C, and pitched Pog there at that temperature. Now, my porch isn't sweltering yet, so I had to bring it inside. But I put it into the spare bathroom, and when I came back to check on it a couple of hours later, the airlock was already bubbling along. Just a couple of hours, and just like bloop, bloop, already going. Gotta love it. And you gotta love those 200 billion cells in each easy-to-open package of Imperial yeast. As I say, my stir plate is dusty because I don't use it anymore to make starters for moderate gravity 5-gallon batches. And this time, my airlock was bubbling by supper time instead of bedtime. Really looking forward to tasting this beer. And, it won't be long before I can. It's practically done. Ask your local homebrew shop about A37 Pog and check out all the dependable deliciousness at imperialyeast.com. That's imperialyeast.com. Okay, let's taste a deliciously low ABV beer from Scott Housel and talk to him and Adam Ross of Twin Span Brewing about issues surrounding food safety in serving lower and non-alcoholic beers. Adam Ross of Twin Span Brewing in Bettendorf, Iowa. Welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thanks for having me back.
And Scott Housel, homebrewer somewhere in Florida. Welcome back.
Thanks so much.
We are here to do another round of Mash Your Luck. And this one Scott Housel did. And if you're not familiar, if this is the first time you've ever heard about this, this is where we choose characteristics of a beer at random, and then the unlucky brewer has to take those characteristics and make it into a recipe that's hopefully drinkable and enjoyable. So Scott, how was it? Was it a hard task?
It was actually a lot of fun. I enjoyed researching and just trying to do something that wasn't really in a style, but sticking to the parameters that I was given.
And what were those parameters? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a very low ABV, so that's less than 3%, balanced bitterness, pale in color, an ale, and U.S.
Oh, okay. And so
I stuck with pretty much all American ingredients. That's kind of how I met that part.
And then what was the ABV that you actually got down to?
2.75.
Oh, very nice. And it's we all have it in our hand, and it's a very, I'd say, straw color, wouldn't you, Adam?
Yeah, it's straw, not quite to I would say like 3 SRM. Pretty dang light, like a really light Hefeweizen.
And talk about the ingredients. Talk about the recipe, Scott, while we sample this beer.
Sure. So I did a lot of research that was fun and asked around and took some advice from you guys. So it is, let's see, it's 2 pounds of light Munich that I got from Root Shoot Malting. That's 38% of the total. It was 1 pound, 12 ounces of Pilsen malt. That's 33%. I did a pound of rye malt at 19%. 4 ounces of acidulated, and I did 4 ounces of Victory malt as well. And those were both about 5%.
And this is a 5-gallon or 19-liter batch.
Yeah, just under. I fermented in a keg, so that's about 4.5 gallons, I think, is what I had in it.
Did you use a Sprunding valve?
I did. I did. I started it under low pressure, and then I slowly brought it up. It was at about 72 degrees.
So you fermented under pressure. Sound effect.
Indeed,
We're on Zoom. We're on Zoom. Unfortunately, listeners, since they're on Zoom, they can't hear the sound effects. So every time
I can imagine it. I've heard it enough.
And what was the hopping strategy?
So hopping, I did a half ounce of Sterling at 25 minutes, and then I did a half ounce of El Dorado at 5 minutes. Also a half ounce of Sterling at 5 minutes from the end of the boil, and then I put the other half ounce of El Dorado in the fermenter right when I pitched the yeast.
Very nice. And the yeast?
The yeast I used Omega's West Coast 2.
Huh.
It said it puts out a little bit more esters. And what I was finding that you kind of want to pack as much flavor from each ingredient, but you don't want to go too far with any of them either. And then I only pitched a half a packet.
Oh, okay. And then what was your mashing strategy? Anything special?
I did it at 160 for 30 minutes.
Okay. Oh, a little high. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I learned. I tried to leave more unfermentables in there, but it fermented to 1007.
Oh.
So it still got a little drier than I was shooting for.
But I like it. It reminds me of my little, rye wit beers, the little, like around 2% beers. It's got a nice hop presence. It's not overly bitter. It's very refreshing. it's got a fairly substantial mouthfeel, in my opinion. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I agree. I'm really enjoying this, and I enjoy the low ABV because I'm in the middle of a brew day right now. So I normally have a rule: no drinking until after yeast is in the tank, and I'm saying this slides in under the radar. It's light enough, it's easy enough. But yeah, it does have a substantial body for this size. I would never guess it to be only 2% odd. And I get this on the nose. I get this almost like a chili pepper character mixed with that Eldorado. So I use Eldorado more than any hop up here. So I know it from, a mile away. And that's definitely showing up here. But there's this like herbal spiciness that I don't get very often in beers. And I have to think it's from the Sterling that I'm not familiar with. But they're kind of 50-50. The two hops are definitely there, and they're neither one's really overpowering the other.
That's what I kind of wanted to have a little bit of the noble characters too, so it was something recognizable, but wanted to give it a nice new hop with a lot of flavor too.
My nose is not working even. It's working even less than normal because I'm coming off a head cold. But I can tell you that the flavor is very nice. It is. I almost get a little bit of lemony character in there. Does anybody else get that, or is it just my my screwed up senses?
I get a little bit of that. I always write that off to the Pilsner malt for whatever reason. Whenever and that's primarily my base grain is a Pilsner. I get just a hint of lemon from that, and I wonder if since this is such a light beer, that's just really standing out more than the normal. Nothing else is getting in the way of that.
Did you do anything to adjust the pH at all?
I did. I adjusted. I was about 5.2 pH going into the mash, and then afterwards, since we were talking about food safety, I wanted it below 4.6 because that's where I put my kettle sours before I get started because I heard that keeps them safer from infections. Mm-hmm. So I added 6 milliliters of lactic acid and brought it down to about 4.5 pH. And then at the end, it ended up about 3.9 after fermentation.
Oh, yeah, it's got a nice little. Maybe that's what's giving me the lemon character. It's on the borderline of being tart, but not. You know what I'm saying? It's got a nice crispness in there on my palate.
Yeah, I can second that.
Cool. And
the finish is really nice and dry. I'm surprised it's as high as 007 because to me it tastes a little bit even drier, almost bordering on like a really crispy lager or a Belgian like a Saison. It's got that like acidic, dry, not quite tannic finish. Really refreshing.
Yeah, it's nice. I can't ding it in any way. The carbonation is really nice. The appearance is good. I could drink this all day, and probably, literally could drink it all day without getting into trouble. It's nice and satisfying and refreshing, and excellent job. I think you hit it right on the head. I think this is an excellent way to interpret the random characteristics.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the first week, I hated it. After it was in the keg and ready, I would take a sample, drink half of it, and then I would go grab a barley wine or a lambic because I just wanted flavor. And then after about a little over a week in the keg, and suddenly I tasted it one day and I said, I like this now. So that was nice.
Yeah, I'm not missing any flavor at all.
I bet even more time lagering would make it push it more towards where I'm kind of picking up that, lager type character of it just being really refreshing and crisp. I don't know how much of this you have left, but I'd be curious if you sat on it for a little while, how it would evolve.
Yeah, I think I have about 18 beers left. I was surprised I killed the keg when I bottled it.
Now you were concerned, Scott, and you brought up something that I'm surprised that I haven't come across. I've brewed around 2% beers, for a few years now, and it never really crossed my mind to be worried about anything. but you had some concerns that you brought up to us, and what were your concerns?
For food safety, for because the alcohol, does something to help with protection against pathogens and infections, and I started wondering about that, and then I came across some documents, and the Sui Generis Brewing website gave two sources that I found elsewhere from the Brewers Association and Science Direct, and they discussed it's mostly the big problem is with non-alcoholic beers,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll find that the big companies don't put them on draft because they found the biggest problem is in the draft lines.
Yeah, around the time that we started this discussion back and forth, the Brewers Association posted something on their website. It was kind of a heads up to people who have tap rooms and brewers that, if you're serving hop water or if you're serving non-alcoholic beers on tap, you've got to worry about food safety concerns that you don't have to worry about with beer, because there are several factors in beer, and we can talk about that help protect it from food spoilage and, potential pathogens. So, Adam, you're the professional brewer in the group. How are you addressing these concerns, at Twinspan?
Yeah, it's been just something that comes up amongst in the industry talks about food safety. So this wasn't brand new to me. I always make sure my beers finish under 4.6 pH because that's the FDA food safe cutoff point. Now, FDA doesn't have oversight into professional breweries, not yet at least, but it's just something a lot of brewers like to adjust for, just in case, for a safety reason. I know a lot of super hazy beers these days are above that, and so and that's what people seem to like. But yeah, I have a hard rule here. Everything comes in under that through. If fermentation doesn't get us there, it's phosphoric or lactic acid addition. And with the rise of NA beers, that's even a much bigger concern, to the point where I was at an industry conference a few months ago, and there was a talk about making NA beers, and I was getting really excited, taking a bunch of notes. And then at the end of the conference, they're like, "If you can't pasteurize, don't even do this. It's not gonna end well." So I don't have pasteurization here, so I said, "Well, I guess I won't be doing that."
But you are doing hop water, right?
Yeah, and we make soda as well. Both those cases, we come in under 4.6. Honestly, I'll just say I don't know if the concern is higher in beer or if it's the same level of concern as there is in soda and hop water. But hop water, I'm not too worried about because there's zero sugar. There's nothing for it to really grow on in there. Mm-hmm. And the soda, I don't know. I mean, everyone makes root beer, and we're just checking pH, and maybe I should be more worried, but everything's good so far.
Yeah, I mean, I used to work I spent a summer working in the fast food business, and, we never sanitized a soft drink line. So what is it about soft drinks? Is it pH? Is it, preservatives? What is it that makes, soft drinks safer than, say, NA beer, to be not worried about that?
Every time I had throughout high school and college, every time I had a chance to take a chemistry class, I took physics instead. So I don't know. But I did when we were, Scott and you and I were going back and forth on email with this. I do have a friend who has worked at some pretty major breweries, and he has a master's or doctorate in microbiology. And I sent him a note about this, and he said, "Yeah, with beer, you'll probably be fine. 2% alcohol or low." For what that's worth. He didn't send me any documents or anything. But I don't know. I feel like beer would be safer because hops are a natural preservative as well. And Scott's beer here definitely has hops in it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I want to learn, but I don't know.
Well, I think there's a lot to learn. I mean, I emailed the FDA, and my question was, I'm a home brewer. At what point is there a low point of ABV in homebrew or beer where it cannot be guaranteed safe anymore? Like, for instance, if you have a 2% alcohol beverage, is that amount of alcohol going to make that beverage safe? And the FDA punted to the TTB. I wrote to the TTB, and they said, we don't do homebrew. So I wrote the CDC, which in the past I had some questions about. Chris Colby and I went through this thing about no-chill brewing and, people saving unfermented wort in jerry cans, for a long period of time. And I wrote someone at the CDC, and they said, no, don't do that. But I wrote the CDC, and they were like, write the USDA. So I didn't write the USDA. I mean, like, they're going to kick this everywhere. I have a contact at the Brewers Association, as you might imagine, and he forwarded the email to Chuck Skypeck of the Brewers Association. And here's what Chuck said. He said, you're asking the million-dollar question in researching the article that you referenced below. Oh, and I sent him a link to the article that the Brewers Association had published, warning people if you're serving, non-alcoholic beer or brew on tap, be careful of food safety. Chuck said, in researching the article that you referenced below, it's very clear that there is very, very little published literature on the survival and or growth of foodborne pathogens in non- and low-alcohol beer. The same goes for hop water. With so little available research on the subject, I can't answer your question with any type of scientific certainty. And then he sent me to another article. He said, when you understand how several different barriers work together to make beer containing alcohol safe, I think it becomes apparent those barriers to foodborne pathogens work together. If you remove one barrier and the others are not as effective. Also, different pathogens have different tolerances, so one approach, such as adjusting pH, might work in deterring one pathogen but not another. And so in beer, you have food safety controls of thermal. In other words, you're heat pasteurizing the wort. You have hops, and they have an antimicrobial property. Acidification, keeping your beer below 4.6. I think below 4.6, the botulism can't survive. Also, ethanol, you've got alcohol in there, and then low oxygen. So all of those tied together make beer, in the old days when we first started brewing, it's like nothing can live in beer that can kill you. Well, if you remove some of these barriers, like if you remove alcohol, then that may upset the apple cart and your stomach, at least. He says, my feeling is that major brewers have done this research, but they do not publish their work. One interesting aspect of the recent surge of the sale of non-alcohol beer is the fact that more non-alcohol beer was sold in the U.S. in 1990 than in 2020 by a significant margin. The non-alcohol product in the 1990s was all produced by the major brewers. You never saw it on draft. I think the major brewers knew it wasn't safe and didn't want to take on the risk. If they felt they could make money selling non-alcohol beer on draft without a risk, they would have done it. So he says brewers are getting ahead of the knowledge curve addressing food safety in non- and low-alcohol beers and other products. So anyway, he said the Brewers Association is funding a research project in 2024 to try to start to fill this knowledge gap, but it's a complex issue. So, we're kind of on the forefront here of the knowledge base. You didn't know that you were gonna open this can of worms, did you, Scott?
I didn't. No, but it turned out to be really interesting.
Well, I'm not done yet. Coincidentally, today, the latest issue of Zymergy magazine hit my mailbox. Zymergy from the American Homebrewers Association. And there's articles in there on making hop water, making non-alcoholic beers. And there's an article also called "Food Safety and Brewing in a Beer," and it's by Katie Nasiatka and Megan Anderson. And one sidebar in here, it said homebrewers looking to share their NA beers with friends and family or to submit them for competition should batch force carbonate them in a keg, then counter-pressure package in cans or bottles, all under sterile conditions, which we really can't do. According to Chris White at White Labs, NA beer under 3% ABV should always be packaged, and those cans or bottles should be pasteurized. His recommendation for homebrewers is to heat a water bath to 176 degrees Fahrenheit, or 80 C, and submerge the 12-ounce cans or bottles in this bath, a few at a time, for 15 minutes or until they reach the same temperature. Once cool, they should be stored refrigerated at less than 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius until consumption. So, that sounds pretty serious.
You know, it's funny. I've actually, just on a whim, we canned some of our fruited sour beer, one of our mainstays, Uncle Juicy. And we did the hot water bath method, and then we did blind taste panel with staff, and it makes a noticeable difference in flavor. For better or worse, it's left up to personal opinion. But if anyone does take that approach, it's going to be different from the beer that didn't get that treatment.
Huh. Yeah, Tim Lieber, several years ago at a homebrew con, he pasteurized mead in the bottle, and we did a taste panel after that, and I can't remember the results. I think we said that it worked. It was a viable strategy for pasteurizing beers or meads. I don't think we said that it tasted too different. I don't know. I need to go back and listen to that episode. Go back in the archives, everybody, and listen to that show. I've done 880 some odd shows. I don't remember everything. So Scott, I think you brought up a good point, and I'm glad you did, because it's not a rabbit hole, because if something's productive, you don't call it a rabbit hole. But it did lead us into this, or lead me into this sort of research and awareness that, as we are pushing the limits of, brewing lower alcohol beers, and especially if you try to get into the zero alcohol category, that there's stuff that you gotta think about that you don't traditionally, we homebrewers haven't had to think about before.
Exactly. No, it makes me want to, if I go low alcohol again, I think I want to be around 4%. I think you can get so much more flavor, and and then there's the food safety part to it.
Yeah, or you can make a Fresca Shandy or a Fresca Chandler. You can dilute your full strength beer with some tasty Fresca, which Steve and I liked. Spoiler alert, or no, people will have heard the episode by now. You guys don't know though, but but Josh and Matt did not like the Fresca Chandler because they don't like Fresca. So I love Fresca, so I liked it anyway. So yeah, I admire, I applaud people with, trying to take care of their health, but it would be sad that in trying to take care of their health by limiting their consumption of alcohol, that they expose themselves to another risk to their health in the form of, foodborne pathogens.
Agreed. It's interesting. I'm thinking here, all those NA beers that the big guys have made, they don't put them on draft, but they are totally okay with letting them sit in bottles for, let's face it, months and months at times. Some retailers, they have the dusty bottles back there because NA doesn't always sell super fast. And we don't see bottles exploding and getting people sick that way. So I wonder if that's more of retailers not, or the brewers not trusting the draft system cleanliness rather than necessarily the inherent risk of these low ABV beers. And I've paid attention and been to enough bars and accounts that's a very real concern. Not everyone is cleaning their draft system every 2 weeks with sanitizer and everything like you're supposed to. So that's my 2 cents. I think there's more to it than simply it's scary by itself. There's just a ton of variables there to take into account.
Well, I'm sure the big boys and gals are pasteurizing their product, in the bottle, so that anything that you that you get in the bottle is going to be safe. Whereas I know that I've had contaminated beer from a tap line on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
So that happens, and luckily with beer, full strength beer, you might get some funky flavors, but it's knock on wood, not going to do you any harm. But yeah, everybody's who's had beer out in the wild on more than one occasion has probably experienced some kind of contamination in one form or the other. So it's an interesting, really interesting area, and one that I didn't think that we would get into on this frivolous little little game show. Is there anything else that we want to say on either Scott's delicious beer or the topic of food safety in low or no alcohol beers?
I wanted to drink the whole bottle, but I'm saving some for for some of my staff, so they'll try it here. That's really tasty.
Yeah, well done.
Oh, thanks. I did like my brew day was 3 hours because I actually pre-boiled some top-off water, and I had such a small amount of grain to heat the water and chill the water that I was suddenly done, and I didn't expect it. So I like that part of it.
It's like my extract brew day recently, where I only brewed or boiled for 15 minutes. From turning on the heat to turning off the chiller, it was an hour and a half. So something to be said for expediency. So our next victim or our next participant in the challenge is not here, and it's Steve Wilkes, and he has entrusted me with spinning the wheel for him and playing in his stead. So gentlemen, we can either be nice to Steve or we can be mean.
I appreciate the segue from a big talk about food safety concerns to, hey, we're going to make Steve brew a beer. Smooth transition there, James.
Well, I haven't gotten sick yet from any of Steve's beers, so... So this is the game. We've got 5 categories: ABV, bitterness, color, type, and origin. And within each of those, there are different subcategories. And we will spin randomly to get those characteristics. So the first category is ABV. 1, very low. 2, low. 3, medium. 4, high. And 5, very high. So, are we ready? Let's
do it.
Ready, Steve?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay, here we go. Oh, number 1, very low.
Okay. Were you hoping for very high or what?
Well, no, it's just ironic. And we just spent 30 minutes talking about how dangerous low alcohol beers are. Now we want to give Steve a very low?
We have a joker.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. All right, so that's so far very low. Let me make a note. All right. Okay, here comes bitterness. Ooh. High bitterness. Steve's going to love that.
Nice.
I'm making a note. All right, high bitterness. Okay, next, the colors pale, gold, amber, brown, or black. So here we go. Oh, it's a black beer. Okay. Interesting. That's good. It's going to be fun. Now, the type for the brew club, we added sour. And I think we add sour for you as well, Scott?
Yes.
So I'm going to take sour off for Steve. I'm going to give Steve a break. So under type, we have lager or ale. So I need to adjust my numbers here. 2 numbers. And here we go. Ale. I think he got a break there. All right. And the last category is origin. We have U.S., Germany, UK, and Belgium. So we got 4 numbers, and here we go. UK. Oh, Steve's going to like that. So we have a very low ABV, high bitterness, black ale from the UK. So should we do the Joker on the ABV, or should we give him a break? What do you?
I want a higher ABV for that beer. That doesn't sound tasty.
No,
that was brand.
No, you're
All right. Yeah, let's be nice. Reroll that.
Okay, so I got to reset my parameters again here. So 5 numbers, and here we go. Oh, very high.
Nice. Oh, them's the break, Steve. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I think he could do that. I mean, he doesn't have to brew 5 gallons. He's been brewing 2.5 gallon batches or.
What is
smaller,
remind me of the low end of very high again?
I don't know. It may be up to interpretation. I mean, something very high for Steve might be 9% or 10%. I don't know. What do you guys think?
And I think it came up when I played the first time, because I think I got very high, or I got high because I was going off the Cicerone cards, and their very high is very, very high. So yeah, 9-10 sounds about the right neighborhood for that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and then you can add a category of ludicrous speed and make that above 12%.
And he can add. He can make the decision to whether to add adjuncts, like coffee or fruit or sugar or whatever. After that, since he's not here, I think we should give him a little bit of freedom in that way.
Right.
So,
all right.
And bitterness is. Are we considering that just calculated IBUs, or can we allow roast grain, which brings its own bitterness, to be a part of that?
Ooh. That's a good question.
I'd say we allow it, even though a lot of dark roasty beers also happen to be very highly bitter. I don't know how you quantify that, but I guess when you taste it, is that very bitter?
That's
That's what I would go with. What's the final perception?
Yeah. If you taste something and go, woof, yeah, that's bitter. Okay, so very high ABV, high bitterness, black ale from the UK. I think he's going to like that.
That sounds like a beer I want to make, and I might actually have one sitting in a barrel here.
You could cheat.
Right.
Submit one that you already have. Oh, well, excellent. I think Steve's going to have fun with that. I think it's right up his alley. Anything.
Yeah, I mean it's a English Imperial Stout, which I honestly don't find too many of those. I see a lot of American Imperial Stouts. but giving him the ability to also then add adjuncts or something and keep it British, I think is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, it's hard to keep him out of the pantry when he's brewing anyway. So, he being the culinary guy that he is, he tends to kind of brew on the fly sometimes. So, yeah, I think, and he could add some extract as well, to help bump up his gravity. So yeah, I think it's a good one. Well, excellent. Anything else for the cause? I know you've got to get back to work here, Adam.
Yeah, I've got I'm insane. I've got 2 beers going at once on our pilot system and our big system, and my brewer's assistant had to run off somewhere. So I've got a hazy IPA and an Irish red ale that is actually I'm hoping comes in under 4% alcohol.
Oh,
hoping. I know it will. That's the target. So yeah, smells excellent here today, and it was nice to get a little break with a delicious low ABV beer.
Yeah, it was really
I'm
good.
glad it worked. I'm kind of jealous though now that Steve got this delicious beer. The exact opposite of mine, pretty much.
Right.
Well, I mean, there's nothing saying you couldn't do it too, but.
True enough.
I mean, I'll leave that up to you. If you got free time. All right.
We'll see how long it takes Steve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. We'll light a fire under him.
Yeah.
All right, guys. This has been fun once again. And thanks, Scott, so much for turning this around in such a hurry and for delivering on the challenge.
Oh, no, thanks. I had fun, and I learned a lot about process and ingredients, too.
Yeah, I think we all learned something. And Adam, get back to work.
Will do. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Many thanks to Scott and Adam. Scott's beer was deliciously drinkable. Looking forward to tasting how Steve responds to the big, bitter, dark challenge before him. Until then, if you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. It's all until next time. Till then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dotson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.